Before we move on to other stuff, G. Bush, we kind of got into it with DeQuell, but Anthony Schwartz, man, I know you have some tough feelings about the Browns' second-year receiver, and the floor is now yours, my friend.
I just don't. No, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I like Anthony Schwartz. I like what he can bring to the table. I like the fact that he has speed, and I know people like, hey, let's get this speed thing, go vertical and go deep, and I get it. But even when you go back and look at Anthony Schwartz and you look at what he did in Auburn, he was not like and I feel even bad about saying this, he's like a third-round pick. Like, in the thought process, that third-round picks are supposed to be where you're banking on these guys to turn into something special or a number one receiver. I think that's foolhardy. Even when he was at Auburn, he never was a guy that was getting off press coverage. He was never a guy that moved around and he was running the whole route tree. He was getting reverses. His biggest plays are off reverses. And so when Kevin Stefanski is inserting this guy into the playbook, I'm just like, well, why are you asking him to run that route? Like, he only runs one route, and it's a slant. And he obviously does not like getting hit going over the middle. We talk about going back to last year with Baker Mayfield. He said basically he gave up on a route, and once he gave up on that route, it caused an interception. It's not the fact that Anthony Schwartz doesn't have good raw materials, but one of the most difficult positions to play is wide receiver. The first thing you have to understand is that you have to see the coverage one way, and the quarterback has to see the coverage that same way, right? To just start off with that means you guys got to y'all got to be able to read each other's mind, right? Then if you guys both happen to see the same coverage, you have three different things you can do after you see the coverage. You can continue through a zone. You can sit down in a zone. You can convert your route on a broken play, or you can do a scramble drill. So now you got four things that you have to process after you process the fact that you got the right defense together. And then you have to catch the football. Now that's the easiest part, right? But it should be. That's all you do. You don't block. You don't really tackle nobody. You don't kick or punt. That's what you do. And he's not a natural catcher of the football. The ball gets into his body. He's not a guy who converts very well and catching the football, tucking the football, and getting upfield. And once again, he does not like contact. So my thought process is this. Could you use him some places else with Schwartz in the offense? Sure you could. But here's the problem. I don't know if Kevin Stefanski is creative enough or adaptable enough as a play caller to put him in the positions to do that. I would never have him running that. I would have him running a segment of jet motion. He would have 9, 6, 10, 15 different things he could do off one jet motion, and that would be his role. Once he got that down and the defense was worried about it, then guess what? You can actually move him around and do some other things. But until then, he is a situational player. He is what you call Josh Cribbs, right? Get him some stuff where he can do something, put him on special teams. But I think it's
Josh didn't mind contact.
He loved contact.
Guys, and that's the problem with Anthony Schwartz.
I hate to say it, but you know who he really reminds me of? John Ross. Remember when the Bengals drafted him?
Yes.
Now, the Bengals drafted him in the first round, which was really dumb. But he's the same type of guy. In college, great speed, but no production. And that's what Schwartz was. Great speed. He wows you at the combine.
I blame Tyreek Hill for this.
Well, why we would draft a really fast guy.
I think it's a copycat league.
Tyreek Hill produce in college? I can't remember for sure, but I thought
he wasn't that dude. He was kind of like you could see why the Browns would say, we're going to get a Tyreek Hill type here who can take the top off the defense. He's lightning fast, and we can use him in a lot of different ways. The only problem with what you just said about how you would use him, and I understand there's a lot of things you could do off the jet, but he's just going to become that guy. Tyreek Hill catch the damn football. He'll catch it and then turn and run, and he's gone.
In fairness to
this
Schwartz,
guy can do that.
He's only in his second year. Guys do improve.
They do.
We were talking about
right now. It feels like a bad pick, though.
We were talking about Deontay Johnson of the Steelers, who is a really good receiver. I think he's in that same class with Amari Cooper, not elite, but the next level of wide receivers. When he first came into the league, he had a bad drops problem.
How long's he been in?
Yeah, he did.
He still got some drop problems.
He still does, but he got better. Last year, he took a big step.
He got a whole lot better.
He got a whole lot better. He's been in the league like 4 or 5 years.
Well, that's heartening at least, because he really did just start turning it on. So that's good.
Yeah.
Here's my question and this is what I don't understand. Last year, his main problem was drops, right? We all agree on that. Like, he was fast. Nobody's complaining about his route running necessarily, are they? I mean, but regardless, his number one problem that we all know him for is drops. He's had a whole offseason. Wouldn't that be the only thing that you did if you were a professional football player?
Buy a jump
and you knew there was one
300
problem.
balls a day.
Exactly, every single day. And that'd be, if you knew you had one thing you had to improve on, that's the only thing I would be doing. And you're young, this is your whole life, you're gonna retire in 10 years max. Just concentrate for one summer and just don't do anything except
and the
catch
thing of it
footballs.
is-
Did he do that?
Maybe
And
he
I don't-
did.
didn't
and
look like
maybe
it.
it's a mental thing.
I
at
think
this
it
point.
probably is.
You know,
Well,
I think maybe it's in his head.
You talked about the fear of contact. You can catch those balls all day long in the summertime from a jugs machine, coming at 75 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's not the
Nobody's
same
bearing
thing
down
without-
on you, and they're
Right.
not.
Well,
they're
then you
not-
have
they're not
people
trying to-
practice bearing down on you. I mean it. Like you have
Yeah,
some
you're
people.
right. No, you're
I'm
right.
talking have your friends there, just like at least in your face. Like there's ways
I'm
around
talking
that.
about
Train.
the threat of being decapitated.
Right, but there are
as
ways.
you're in this position.
I'm not saying just being an empty field catching a ball. I'm saying there are training things I'm sure you can do to simulate in some way without
would hope
injuring
so.
the guy. And I just don't understand
I'm
it.
rooting
Remember
for
when
him.
like LeBron would decide to become a good free throw shooter over the summer?
Right.
He's just like, I don't like this part of my game. And then
Yeah.
he'd just spend all summer like a psychopath in a gym, and then his percentage would go up like 8% for the next year. Why can't, I mean, I know not everyone's LeBron, but why can't people at least approach it with that same sort of determination?
I understand. I understand what Mike's saying wholeheartedly. Like I like when people get older, right, and they say they lose athleticism, right? To me, I look at it and I'm like, no. I've torn 2 ACLs, and my goal was just to dunk a basketball again.
Right.
And I just worked on my vertical and plyometrics for a whole year, and I jumped higher than I did before that. My thought is like, how can Carmelo Anthony be not athletic? Like, what do you mean?
Right.
Like, this is your job. I think with him, Anthony Schwartz, he's just a track guy, right? He's not. He's in the middle ground. He's not fast enough to say I'm fast like Usain Bolt, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that fast, but I'm faster than most of the people who play football. But the problem is, people who are fast that play football, that only play football, they got all of the tools. They can catch, they can run, and they're just as fast as you. I think he just happened to be a guy that hit it big, and I'm fast, and he got in the league because he's a track guy.
But to your point, and I agree with you, I would say that's the reason to think that it's going to take, like if he's going to be good, it might take time because he's not a natural player.
Yeah.
And can he develop those
And how
skills?
long do you
I don't
wait?
know.
And speaking of that, how long do you wait for?
You can't rely
for
on him to be a
DPJ?
key guy. Certainly not.
But no, you can't. Not
Yeah.
now. But we need him to be a key guy right now.
At some point,
we need
yeah.
like if you start listing the guys that we have at receiver, he's going to be in the top 3 names that you name.
Yeah.
So is DPJ.
By default.
But these guys aren't producing like that.
Well, I mean, we don't know that. The season hasn't started yet. It's one preseason
We
game.
gave
we saw
DPJ.
both of them last year.
DPJ
Right.
is all of a sudden the number 2. Like I don't
He got promoted
He
by
got
default because people left.
And people, you say his name like he got numbers. You're like, oh, DPJ. Right after Amari Cooper, we good. No, I haven't seen him do anything.
No, they don't have a number 2 receiver. That's
And that is big
they have a
problem.
3, a 4,
For
and a
team
5.
goal,
But
if you're the Browns and it's a normal season and they're picking you between 6 and 11 and 9 and 8, that's cool. You know, we're used to going into a season with major holes.
Yes.
But if you're a team who's in the conversation to go to the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
and you've got the Bengals and the Bills and the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Chargers. And all these teams, and you're going to say we're weak at wide receiver, but you know. You're burying your head in the sand and thinking you're going to have a chance because this is a passing league.
I hear you,
And
but
our
there
receivers,
are. Do the Bills have a clear number 2 guy receiver?
I'll take all of the Bills
All of them,
receivers
all of them.
over ours without even
Who's
looking
that
at the
13
roster.
kid? That 13
Yeah, the kid who came on at the end of last year was their
Yeah.
number 2. But
Gabriel
he's
Davis is
unproven.
good.
Yes, very
Good.
good.
But whether they
What'd
do
you say?
or not, whether the Bills have one or not, it still doesn't make any sense
neither
for us
do the
not
Ravens.
to go after one if there's somebody
Agreed.
available.
I don't know that there was
There's no one
listen,
who can upgrade us on the market right now. And
Every team's
I'd
got
bring
some
Will Fuller
flaws.
in, just-
Every team's got some flaws, right? I mean, you know, that's the Browns' flaws. Number 2 receiver and defensive tackle.
And my point there is that's
Yeah.
a bad area to have a flaw. It's like saying we're a World Series contender, but our pitching is really
It's
good.
less of a big deal if Watson is the quarterback, but he's not.
I think this puts it in perspective. Tyler Boyd might be better than our number 1 receiver. He's comparable.
I don't think so.
The number 3 is comparable to your number 1.
Yeah, but that's an extreme circumstance with the Bengals.
They're in our
receiving
division.
Yeah, that's the team
I
you
don't
gotta
agree.
beat.
And listen, I love Tyler Boyd. He's not as good as Amari Cooper, I don't think.
Well, what's stunning about
Yeah.
Amari Cooper is
Yeah.
when you look at his
Production.
stats, macro and even micro, season to season. What
He's
you'll see is
inconsistent.
this is what he is because
Yeah.
we know who he is now. He's got a large enough sample size. He catches 5 balls a game, under 5 balls a game, and he scores a touchdown not even every other game. McNuggets, can you throw his numbers up again?
We will. Give us 1 sec.
All right, so the problem with that, Bull, is he's not a complimentary guy. So he's played in 108 games, and he's got 517 receptions. So that's less than 5 catches a game.
Yep.
He's also averaging less than a touchdown every 2 games. Those aren't number 1 receiver numbers. Amari Cooper, the name, because he was at Alabama and because he was so highly touted, but the name carries less and less clout with each season that he has that isn't a wide receiver 1 season.
And I think we talked about it. DeQuell mentioned this here before when you talk about Odell Beckham Jr. and they said who better, Odell or Amari Cooper? I said, oh, that's not even close. If Odell Beckham Jr. is healthy,
But he's never healthy. Never.
Amari Cooper is not the bastion of health. I mean, he's been injured and nicked up too. And if you ask me, to a point, think about this.
Amari Cooper has 21 touchdowns the last 3 years. That's pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah, but
I'm happy we have Amari Cooper.
Okay,
I am
21
too.
touchdowns, but that's still less than a touchdown every other game.
Well, how many does Odell Beckham have the last 3 years?
Well, I'm not going to compare him to Odell Beckham because
Right.
Odell Beckham's not here.
And he also
I think Odell Beckham's a better talent, but Odell is pointless because Odell hasn't had a good, healthy year in 6 years.
He had a pretty decent Super Bowl when they
I
needed
just
him.
need my wide
Until he
receiver
got hurt again,
1.
right?
I need my wide receiver 1 to have more than 7 touchdowns a year. I just do. I want him to have more than that.
I look around. All I do is I look around the league and I say when I go roster for roster, right? And you start looking at the Chargers with Mike Williams and what's his Keenan Allen, and you like, dang, these 2 guys is big, tall, strong.
Yes, if you compare the best teams in the AFC, the Browns are near the bottom at wide receiver. The best teams. They're better than Baltimore, and that's probably it of the contending teams in the AFC.
I would rather be. I think they have the best running backs, and not just in the AFC. I think in the NFL. I would rather have the best wide receivers in the NFL.
Yeah.
And a bottom tier running back.
But
room.
who were they going to get as their number 2 receiver that was going to make them that much better?
That's not my job. That's the Browns'
I mean,
job.
even if they had Jarvis Landry,
They've got all this cap space.
are they better than any of these other teams we're talking about?
It's worth throwing
No,
them out
but
there.
but
they're better than they are as
dramatically
constituted.
Agreed,
better.
but we've known this for a while. I think we're panicking about it.
I thought
at
the
this
decision
point.
to let Jarvis walk was a bad one. We talked about it on this show at the time.
I agree.
I didn't mind it if they had a plan, but I just don't like that our second receiver on the team right now didn't earn it. He got there because 2 other guys left. I would prefer for it to 3 other guys.
Hollywood
left.
Higgins.
I would. Yes, you're
I
right.
just think
He's in
at this-
Carolina now.
I think Hollywood Higgins is not a starting receiver. He's
Why
not
has he got
number
that
2.
cool nickname then?
He shouldn't have it.
All
He hasn't
right,
earned
well,
it. I
agree to disagree.
They called Daniel Jones Danny Dimes. He ain't earned his nickname either.
Great nickname.
Yeah, but you know
But
what?
he's one of the worst
He's
quarterbacks
more,
in the
he's more
league.
like Danny Pennies in reality, but Danny
It's
Dimes
a
is
terrible
great
nickname because it conjures up this idea that he's dropping dimes.
I know.
Right.
And he's dropping
not.
dimes to the other team's defensive backs.
Exactly.
That's not
Exactly.
good. Who would have thought that Baker Mayfield, he's throwing to better receivers in Carolina than he would be if he was here right now.
I know. Are you fantasizing again? Is that what
No,
you're doing in front of us?
No, somebody sent me the worst text ever yesterday. You know what it was?
I
said, here's our nightmare. Baker throws for 300, 2 touchdowns to Hollywood Higgins, rolls the Browns, and I stopped reading it.
Right.
I didn't even
I
finish
think
the
you
tweet.
guys are
I'm like,
going
I've had
too
enough.
far.
Hey, don't forget enough.
Don't
I
forget,
think
I'm
you're
gonna be
making
at
it
that
seem
game.
like every team's other
You're going,
guys
right?
are great and the Browns' other guys are not. We'll see. They played 1 preseason game. We got to give these guys a
Are
chance.
you going to report